the invention of synchronized sound via Vitaphone technology. This must be how Ariel felt. My senior project final deliverable is a silent film about a magician called The Disappearing Act. It is the tale of an aging illusionist looking back on his life, from his days as a homeless youth learning the tricks of the trade, to his heyday as the famous magician the Great Zotero, before his decline and disappearance after the death of his wife. You may wonder, where's the communication? I'm going to tell you in excruciating Ian Rigg fashion. The subject of examination and implementation is nonverbal communication. The author E. Sapir once mused that nonverbal communication is an elaborate and secret code that is written nowhere, known by none, and understood by all. The most fundamental form of communication is nonverbal. It predates human speech. My literature review examined the manifestation of nonverbal communication in silent film, and so my final project will be to make my own, exemplifying everything I've learned about the era. My project displays how nonverbal communication and silent cinematography work hand in hand, to tell a story. To compensate for cinema without sound, filmmakers utilized various nonverbal techniques, tools, and tricks. There is a cornucopia of communicative phenomena to examine within the medium, from the kinesics of the actors' faces and bodies to the proxemics present in the blocking of a scene or composition of a shot. The technology of the time period allowed moving pictures to be preserved and proliferated in the first moving mass medium, to the point that they form the foundation of the films we enjoy today. Their communication is all-surrounding, all-encompassing. You just can't hear it. My scholarly paper was titled Silence is Golden, the Manifestation of Nonverbal Communication in Silent Film. Spoiler alert, the paper examined how nonverbal communication manifests in silent film, looking at specific nonverbal communication cues, how they convey specific messages of storytelling, and how the medium of film facilitates these cues. I have studied at great length the filmmaking techniques of the silent era so that I can duplicate them digitally. For a previous project, I created a film scratch overlay, which will mimic the sepia tone and poor preservation of silent film stock. I also plan to accelerate the frame rate a bit to emulate the shaky, sped-up style of silent film, which is actually the result of these films being played back incorrectly, with the modern speed of 24 frames per second, rather than their native time period's hand-cranked 12 to 16 frames per second. In all areas, I plan to approximate a vintage moving picture with my silent film. My research revealed not only how to make a silent film, but what to make it about. I discovered an intriguing intermarriage between silent film and Victorian stage magic. There are apocryphal accounts that audiences ran out of their seats as a train steamed towards the camera, convinced it would come out of the screen to steamroll them. Film is a magic act, a sleight-of-hand carnival sideshow where the audience suspends their disbelief due to a desire to be fooled. At theatrical spectacle, magic is a match for moving pictures, but they actually share a heritage. The magic of movies was made manifest by a magician. George Méliès was a turn-of-the-20th century magician who purchased camera equipment as a means to showcase his tricks. He quickly discovered that you could do tricks with the camera itself. For instance, one I intend to use in my film is the substitution splice, where you're filming, you stop the camera in place, you remove or replace the subject, and then resume rolling, so there's a disappearance of the subject through a jump cut. He made over 500 films by the end of his life, including A Trip to the Moon, where this iconic image is from. Bing! When I wrote my rough draft of the film over the summer, I thought an old-timey magician would be good fodder for a silent film, but I didn't anticipate how appropriate it would be. Which, speaking of, I must research how to properly format my script. There's a lot of things I have to accomplish, and it's going to be quite the challenge. Costumes, characters, directing, editing, all on a non-existent budget? That's going to be the real magic trick. I'm going to need equipment and software. Though films of the silent era were produced through archaic analog means, for example shooting on nitrate film reels and splicing the frames hand by hand to create a sequence, I will approximate the aesthetic with digital technology. I will need to periodically check out Canon DSLRs and tripods from the Media Services Department. I may also borrow my mother's similar digital single lens reflection Nikon equipment, and I will utilize Adobe Premiere and After Effects on the CDET lab editing bay to edit my project. Now, some constraints. I do not yet have a complete timeline. That's one thing I have to hammer out over break. I've been in 5-minute mode due to triaging tragic turmoil in my personal life, but I intend to get my scenes at home and in Naperville done over break while my dad and my brother are off from school and work around the holidays. As anyone in improv could tell you, I'm pretty good and quick with editing, but I am blocking myself March to get it done, as well as reshoot anything that needs it. I do have a cast. I currently have 6 participants. I have an interesting bit of casting where the lead role of the magician is played by 3 people. The roles of the magician as the young and old man are played by my brother Quinn and my father Brian, with myself filling in for the magician in his prime. We all look quite similar, seeing as, we're related and all, and can pass as the same man at different ages. We are all strong actors and live in the same household, so this situation is optimal. Playing off a similar convenience and taking advantage of my actor acquaintances, I've asked my girlfriend Amanda to play my on-screen wife, my sister Kira will cameo as the literal embodiment of death, and my dog Shadow will be a cute animal sidekick. Now, what I will need to get done over break is first and foremost to hammer out the timeline, finalize my script in its proper format, and obtain vintage costume pieces and gather a few more. I have to do more research on actual magic. I've researched magic behind the camera, but now I actually need to figure out tricks and illusions to perform on the camera. Robert Howden once said, "A magician is an actor playing a magician." I must learn how to play a magician. I also need to remember my mutual motto with Tim Gunn, "Make it work, people," and the sagacious words of Dr. Renee Robinson, "Suck it up and do the work." Hopefully I'll prove to be a first-rate sorcerer. Thank you for your time today. Have a wonderful day.